We have Councillor Allison, Councillor Brown. I'm just going to check if we've got Councillor Chalmers. No, we don't have Councillor Chalmers. I'll check if we have Councillor Cooper. We don't have Councillor Cooper. We have Councillor Fagan. Again, I'll just check if we've got Councillor Robb. Yes, we do have Councillor Robb. And we have Councillor Ross. We have apologies from Councillor Walker. We have Paul Manning. We have apologies from Jackie Taylor. And we have apologies from Suman Sengupta. We have apologies from Jan Gardner and Josephine Pravin Kumar, but I believe we've got Elspeth Russell here, and I'll just double check. Yes, we have Elspeth. And I'll just check to see if we have Hisashi. No, so we'll have apologies for him. And we have Stephen Sweeney and Thomas Adamson. There are also a number of officers present, and with that, I'll hand back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I come now to item 1, which are declarations of interest? Are there any declarations of interest? I have John Ross.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. It's not a declaration of interest. It was in the last item. It was just to put in an apology for Councillor Chalmers. She's at another meeting at the present time. Was hoping that the meeting would be finished, but obviously it's not. So I'm putting in our apologies. Thanks very much. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I come now to item 2, which are the minutes of the previous meeting? Are there any issues arising from the previous meeting? I don't see any, so can we agree those as a correct record? And I think we can. We are agreed. I'll come now to item 3, which is a report on the Clydesdale Way, and we have Judith Gibb to speak to that report. Judith.
We started this project back in 2021-22. We've been working in partnership with Scottish Borders Councils and Dumfries and Galloway Councils. The project was the Three Rivers Active Tourism Project. Our specific project is called Clydesdale Way, which focuses on the rural paths and cycling networks through Clydesdale Way. I have a map. I think we're just going to put it up on the screen. Thank you. So the route starts at the end of the current Clyde Walkway at Lanark, and it progresses down to Hindford Bridge, then over to Carmichael, on to Thankerton, then on to Biggar, which it can either go two ways. It can go towards Biggar and then on to John Buchan Way, which links up a pathway. And also then from Biggar it can go on up to Cooter, Lamington, then up to Abington, Crawford, then up to Elvenfoot, and then on to Southern Upland Way. The creation of Clydesdale Way promotes numerous benefits to South Lanarkshire and the Clydesdale area, connecting current paths and settlements, establishing a long-distance path route through this area of South Lanarkshire, and connecting disadvantaged and isolated communities. The other two projects from Dumfries and Galloway and Borders were the Chambers Institute, which could be an unlisted building in Peebles, and Annan Harbour. The funding is from Luff, and we were awarded 22 million for this. Our share of this was 7 million. Dumfries and Galloway are lead authority in the project. Today, though, we were advised that we currently can't engage with Luff due to the election period. So this may have an impact in some timescales. We've been going through a procurement exercise to appoint a consultant to design and develop the route, and also work with some landowners in relation to the project. Timescales currently are Luff spend by March 26. The council have contributed 755,000 to the project, and we'll have a detailed programme following the contractor appointment. The next steps are for us to appoint the consultant. We have an internal project team and setting up a project board for the project, and also we'll continue to meet regularly with Dumfries and Galloway and Scottish Borders. We have worked with various teams across the council, legal team, estates, planning, to work on the landowner agreements. We have carried out some consultation which was submitted with the LUF bid in December 22. We'll do further consultation on the appointment of the consultant. We did letter the landowners back in 2022. We will start to engage with them again once the consultant has been appointed. That's everything, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask if there are any questions on that report? If there are, could you indicate now? Could I maybe ask just in terms of the engagement with the landowners, are we finding that they maybe, are there any delays that's contributing to the project? Are we finding that they are cooperative and maybe understanding the wider benefits to the community of the project?
We haven't started the process yet. It's the appointed consultant that will engage with them. We have lettered them. They have received a summary of but the routes haven't been finalised or anything yet. That will be done, in consultation with the landowners.
Right. Okay. Okay. If there are any other questions, could you indicate now? I've not seen any other questions, so it looks like you've got off lightly, Judith. So thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
It's just for noting. Can I come then to item 4, which is the Community Wealth Action Plan Q4 update, and Neil Reid is going to speak to this item. Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So we bring an update on the Community Wealth Building Action Plan to the Commission twice a year. So this is the second one. This is a Q4 update. So it covers the full year period, April 2023 to the end of March 2024. So in terms of the action plan, there are 72 actions which are in the action plan, and they're being tracked, and they have been updated in the appendix to this report in terms of giving a small narrative about what's been happening, and they've been given a status, an indication of how they've been doing, so blue, green, amber and red. So the definitions, as usual, they're in the table at 4.3 in your report, and the summary information is at 4.4, showing how those 72 actions break down in terms of the green, ambers and reds, etc. There are 2 completed actions which, when we come to review the action plan later in the year, we'll take those out and we'll refresh the action plan and bring a revised action plan to the Commission for approval later on. But the appendix has some more information about each of the items. We also, later in the year, bring an annual report. So some of these things that are in the action plan will be expanded upon at that point, and case studies will be put forward as well. Essentially, it's to note the progress and note the contents of the reports. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I ask if there are any points or questions? Could you indicate now? And could I come to Kirsten Robb?
Afternoon, everybody. I've got a few questions on it. Thanks for the report and the previous one as well, Judith. It's a great project. So just to ask, on page 22, we talk about working with anchor organisations and social enterprises. I can see that's still a work in progress, so I'd be interested in finding out more really about how we increase spend in this sector in line with the Community Planning Partnership's aims to grow the sector. A bit more, any more information we can share yet about how we can increase contract opportunities or change or look at the evaluation criteria. Is there any updates on that, or is that something for a future meeting?
I think Craig might be able to respond to those questions. So, Craig.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the questions, Councillor Robb. In relation to your first point on working with anchor institutions, that's still, I feel like, an early stage of development, I would suggest. There was a meeting with NHS Lanarkshire colleagues back in March of this year to discuss potential opportunities. Now, essentially at this point, we're looking at gathering some base information around community transport. See, there's a potential area of overlap there in terms of any requirements the council have in that area, together with those obviously identified by NHS Lanarkshire. But there's probably a broader point worth making here as well, in terms of just the way in which, you know, NHS Lanarkshire and ourselves even procure may be a limiting factor in terms of how much we can take that particular activity forward. Nonetheless, though, we're keen to explore opportunities. As I say, we're beginning off looking at community transport as one area. Others may evolve, obviously, as discussions take place through the course of this year. In relation to your second point on the valuation criteria, we have had discussions within the Community Wealth Building Group around opportunities here, and really, to put this quite kind of succinctly, essentially we can't use the fact that a company is local as a standalone award criteria in its own right. Essentially, we have to make sure that we're working along the kind of standard procurement principles of non-discrimination, etc. The areas where you can look at local factors in awarding a contract could be, for example, if we had to have a particular contractor respond in a certain time frame to provide a certain service. So that maybe just kind of demonstrates just the kind of the very narrow scope we've got around this particular thing. I would say discussions haven't quite been concluded, but early indications are that essentially that there's really only kind of limited scenarios in which we could actually award local companies, mindful of the need of those kind of procurement principles that I've outlined. Obviously, as we further develop our thinking on this through the course of this year, we can update the Commission as far as we can.
Okay,
Thank you. I've got another couple, but if that's okay.
Yeah, on you go.
Okay, thanks very much. I was also interested in it was actually on page 31 about the Strathclyde Pension Fund one, and finding those projects that are kind of investment ready that meet their criteria. I was just I remembered quite a few years ago that I think it was Falkirk Pension Fund invested in housing projects. I wondered if there's how that is progressing, to see if Strathclyde Pension Fund would invest in any of our shovel-ready sort of projects that will give them a return as well.
Okay, I think we'll go back to Craig for that.
Thanks again for the question, Councillor Rob. I'd probably suggest I take that back to the finance lead in that particular point, and then come back to the Commission with a response in due course, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have another question?
Just the one more, thanks very much.
It's okay.
Again, it sounds like just something that's just started, but on page 32, there's the work on community bonds and supply chain initiative. Just seeing if you can give us a bit more information on that, and if when you're thinking about sort of conclusions or final updates on that.
Again, thank you, Councillor Rob. I'll give it the same response I gave just a few moments ago. If you don't mind, I'll take that back to the appropriate lead and give that an update in due course.
Okay.
Thank you.
And what we'll do there is when we get a response, we'll circulate it around the Commission in the normal way. Could I come now to John Ross?
Yes, thanks, Joe. It was in relation to one of the questions that Kirsten brought up there, and Craig had replied with regard to NHS and how they were looking at trying to have some procurement there, and they were looking at the transport side as an initial. I was obviously a wee bit disappointed, knowing you, Craig, but in the fact that I attended a CLES seminar where in England quite a few of the hospitals, etc., had transformed their buying powers from where they initially brought into a more community wealth building setting. And I'm just wondering if it's maybe because we're at the very early stage of this, and that the NHS has maybe got procurement with so many other people that they haven't had a chance to look at going along these lines. But certainly it seemed to be much further on in England with NHS and some of the other areas than it is up here. Is there any comment on that?
I think You're looking to respond to. I'm going to. All right, we've got a couple of people now looking to respond to that, and then I'm going to come in myself with a thought. But could I maybe come to Elspeth from the NHS in the first instance?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes, great. So just to respond to Councillor Ross, I think it's a really good point. It's one that we are really keen to look at what is the art of the possible within this space around procurement. A couple of caveats to that would be that firstly, we've got quite limited capacity within NHS Lanarkshire to do more than we're doing or to look at things differently. Our procurement lead is really committed to this. He's just really struggling in terms of capacity with just the kind of routine contracts that he has to take forward. The other caveat though is what is already done through national contracts. So what scope do we have locally versus what's done nationally? But reassuringly, as part of our anchor work nationally, that is being looked at by the Scottish Government to see if there's things that they can change that would help to facilitate some of that locally. So I think you're right. There's some fantastic examples from down south that have been reported through CLES, and we need to take some of that learning and see what we can do. And certainly when we met with Craig, we thought, well, community transport's one that we're currently looking at our transport. We know there's already some community transport examples within South Lanarkshire. Is that an area where we could potentially start something? But we also have the opportunity of our new hospital build, which we're keen to think about. Is there things we can do differently through that? We have a community benefits plan, and that hospital will be serving all of Lanarkshire, not just North Lanarkshire. So I think there's a number of things, but you're right, it's at an early stage. But I suppose to reassure you, we are really committed to look at what we can do more of in this space within the parameters that we're able to work within.
Okay, thank you. I now see we have a Thomas Adamson looking to come in. Thomas.
It's just to follow up with what Elspeth said. As a somewhat smaller anchor institution, the university's primary issue is a geographical one, in that UWS has campuses in Renfrewshire, Ayrshire, South Lanarkshire, and Dumfries. So we look at local buy from that whole area, which is different from South Lanarkshire being the local buy area. So there is a slight conflict there. Elspeth will have a similar conflict, and also procurement, as she has said, the procurement rules have pushed a lot of our spend onto national frameworks. But what we could do, what we are doing, is by educating the local suppliers that there are areas where they can quite easily get themselves much further up the frame, particularly in sustainability options, and showing their advantages to that. So if you're local, there isn't as much movement, there isn't much transport of materials. That can make their bid much more favourable. And it's trying to get that message across. I've been bringing it out to some of our local suppliers and moving us away from some national ones. So just to make that the rest of the Commission aware of these sort of issues that can be done in a sort of sideways fashion. So, okay.
Okay. Thanks for that, for those contributions from both UWS and the NHS. What I was going to just draw attention to is that we are looking to bring a report back later in the year, I think, on the subject of a community wealth building charter, so that would encompass partners, and obviously partners will need to reflect on that and reflect in their own positions, their own policies, but it might be a useful space in which to pick up some of the points that have just been raised. Can I ask if there are any other questions? I don't see any, so therefore we will note the report and come now to item 5, which is a report on community wealth building through our Gypsy Traveller site investment. And Jonathan Reid is going to speak to that report. Jonathan.
Thanks, Chair, and afternoon, members. Thank you for having me along this afternoon. The purpose of this report, as the Chair set out, is to provide an overview of community wealth building achieved through South Lanarkshire Council's investment in the 2 Gypsy Traveller sites that we have in South Lanarkshire. Recommendations set out at Section 2 is for the report to be noted by the Commission. Section 3 provides a background to this. So the Council currently operates 2 Gypsy Traveller sites, one located at Shawlands Crescent in Lark Hall, and the second at Springbank Park in East Kilbride. And between the two, we provide accommodation for around 100 Gypsy Traveller residents at any one time. At 3.2, we note that a range of improvement work has taken place on the sites over the past number of years, and delivering on investment priorities that have agreed with residents through site-specific master plans that we've set up. A key aspect of this work is to make sure that we have alignment with community wealth building ambitions and laterally through the current community wealth building strategy, as well as ensuring that intended capital spend and national funding is drawn down and spent locally, benefiting local contractors and suppliers. Section 4 provides an overview of progress to date, highlighting the phased approach that we've taken through these projects, with the range of projects completed, plus the range of funding sourced to enable delivery. And at 4.4, we note that we've received a lot of positive praise for this work as well. There's been recognition across Scotland as us being a model of best practice. We've been recognised through various awards as well at COSLA and at the UK-wide Municipal Journal Award back in 2022. So we have a process that is working, and what we're trying to do is refine that by ensuring that we contribute to as many agendas as possible, including community wealth building and participatory budgeting, allowing residents to have their say on how we spend the money that we have. Section 5 provides an overview of the local focus of investment. And to date, we've spent 1.9 million across the 2 sites. Now, it might not seem too significant given the scale of some of our other programmes, such as the Housing Investment Programme or the Affordable Housing Supply Programme, but it's certainly significant when you look at the scale of the numbers of people that this is for as well. A lot of that capital spend has been completed by Lanarkshire-based contractors or internally through council services. And we have achieved this through a variety of procurement routes, including quick quote, many competitions within frameworks that focus on smaller scale building projects. Now, as we've heard already today, we can't simply award projects based on somebody's location, a contractor's location. So we have been working with contractors to make sure that any bids that they're submitting for the proposed works that we have on the sites ensure that the focus around ensuring the supporting Gypsy Traveller culture and helping the Gypsy Traveller community has been drawn through in that. So that's something that we've tried to draw through this process as well. And at 5.2, we note the overview of the key projects and procurement routes, location of contractors, and the banded values across each of the site in the table there. You'll see the wide range of projects that have taken place to date, and the range of procurement routes that we've used as well. At 5.4, we've provided a high-level overview of the proportion of spend that's been taking place across the Lanarkshire area. So 55% of that, including council services that have been utilised for the projects, has been spent in South Lanarkshire. We have one contractor who's been working very closely with us on these sites for a number of years now, based in North Lanarkshire, accounting for that spend. And then we've got 15% across Glasgow and elsewhere as well. So vast majority of work that has taken place has been done so by locally based contractors. At 5.6 as well, we note some of the new approaches that we're taking as well to ensure that community wealth building is instilled in this work that we do. So we've had opportunities for residents to actually contribute to the projects as well, recognising the very practical nature of a lot of the residents that we've got and the businesses that they're involved in as well. So community-led initiatives such as the removal of scrap metal or rubble, we had a new play park installed, and to remove the old play park, we asked the residents to help with that, and they were more than happy to, with the funds being shared amongst the community through the Residents Association. So there's a process in place there where they're actually contributing to and reaping the benefits of that as well. And what we're also looking to do is support the companies that actually these residents are involved in as well, showing them how to get on to the different frameworks that exist for the Gypsy Traveller companies, to allow them to bid for projects that the council may be taking forward, whether that's on the sites or elsewhere. Smaller scale projects their companies could actually deliver, and making sure that they have all the right information and the tools to be able to apply and get onto these frameworks to be considered for any projects. Section 6 set out the next steps involved in this, and essentially it's continue doing what we're doing. As I say, we're working well with the community. We are receiving positive feedback from them, and we're working well with the contractors that we have in place to deliver all the projects. And at 6.2, we note some of the projects that are coming up over the course of the next year or so. And we'll continue to seek that local spend through this continued investment. At 6.4, we note that further updates on this will continue to be provided to the Council's Executive Committee with the latest report in the Local Housing Strategy coming through on the 26th of June, as well as reporting structures through the Resource Plan and Community Plan. So I draw attention of members back to recommendations at Section 2 for the contents of the report to be noted, and I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Can I ask if there are any questions or points in relation to that report? Could you please indicate now? I think from my own point of view, just as a local member that has one of these, East Kilbride site in my own ward, I would highlight, I think, and I see it's been recognised elsewhere, but actually the Council's commitment to consultation and engagement, it comes through in that report, but it's actually come through in other reports and in other places as well. But it's encouraging to see us look at this with a community wealth building lens as well. I'm not seeing any questions. So, Jonathan, can I thank you very much for the report? And can I come now to item 6, which is on Keep the Beat Alive, which is a third sector campaign, and we have Stephen Sweeney who's going to speak to that. Stephen.
Hello. Yep, there we are. Great. Got the green light. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm Stephen Sweeney. I'm the Chief Executive of Vaslan, the Third Sector Interface in South Lanarkshire. So thanks very much for the opportunity today. Really just to, in terms of recommendation or purpose, they really just to make colleagues within the Commission aware of this campaign, and for those that can't maybe engage in necessarily in campaigns, really just round about the work underneath that and how we can collaborate, thinking through a community wealth building lens. So just briefest of summaries, walking through the paper, and then just a couple of points at the end to maybe try and encourage a couple of questions or comments. Since the first lockdown, there's actually been, what's now, at the time of writing the paper, 184 third sector organisations that now no longer exist. So some of those, a small number of those are positive news stories that they were maybe formed for a particular purpose in terms of initial crisis response. There might be some organisations who have merged to become sustainable in the longer term. There might be some that have achieved what they want to achieve, or maybe they've just, haven't sufficiently succession planned and they didn't have a committee or a board to continue. But increasingly many of the organisations who, at a local level, who aren't able to continue, they're running out of resources as per the financial challenges that all sectors and industries are facing at the moment. And I guess the back end of last year, as the Third Sector Interface, we've been reflecting on our core functions, our core purpose, and if we really want to be who we're supposed to be and to stand up for members and to be true to our values, we didn't feel that the way that we currently facilitate the range of voices across the sector, how we support volunteers, charities, community organisations and social enterprises, we didn't feel that what we were doing was cutting it. So we're attempting to be a wee bit bold and a wee bit brave and stand up for what we feel is right and look after our members and show a wee bit of leadership in South Lanarkshire and trying to step into a campaigning space and trying to celebrate the sector. But in particular, identify and create conversations where at a national level, primarily at Holyrood and at Westminster, that we need some fundamental change if our communities and the organisations who are the heartbeat of our communities are to not only survive but to thrive. So we've been co-producing this campaign with over 100 local organisations involved, and there's a number of links in there which I won't take you through today, but please have a look at your leisure if you haven't had an opportunity to do so. There's a website which gives you all information about the campaign. There's an explainer animation which talks you through the fact that the campaign's been designed that we want to, the aim of the campaign is really to influence local, but especially national. So there's a wee nudge local and a team Lanarkshire, what more can we do at a local level? But really this is about national change, try to really influence national policy shapers and decision makers about the value impact that our grassroots third sector organisations can and do have day after day. Tools to help with that, there's an impact report there that's got a range of data and stories, actually very, very powerful, and some great examples of health inequalities being tackled at a local level. So some nice bedtime reading there for you if you haven't had a chance to look at it. And there's 4 short films, and the purpose of the films really are to try and create conversation. Sometimes round about the cultural misunderstandings of sectors better understanding each other's worlds and the challenges that we're facing. So with the campaign, bear in mind that in particular the campaign is to influence national policy shapers and decision makers. There's 3 aims. One is about recognising the value of the sector at a local level. The second is about smarter funding with the resources that we do currently have. And the third is about meaningful engagement. So our kind of primary tool at the moment, particularly around about the smarter funding, is a local fair funding charter which sets out the principles of, if we were to lead by example, particularly nationally, but we can explore what's in the art of the possible within our legal and regulatory frameworks within South Lanarkshire. But what would local fair funding look like within South Lanarkshire, noting that we really need that national change to make it happen. So that's what's in the paper, and then just a couple of points just to make, maybe just to try and lead to a couple of questions or comments. So really note and appreciate, Neil, in the action plan there. We're now very much viewing the campaign or the work underneath the campaign around how we look to develop that strategic relationship with the sector, which is fantastic, and it's exactly what this is all about. It's about meaningful engagement and how do we work together. So grateful for that. Thank very much South Lanarkshire Council colleagues. I know that at full council tomorrow there's a motion round about the campaign where the parties will reflect on to what extent they can support. So everything crossed for some cross-party support and within what that is possible at a local level, and showing some leadership there, knowing that we need national change. I know that through Elspeth, etc., the NHS Lanarkshire as well are keen to have conversations around about their anchor responsibilities and how the third sector based fits in, and maybe just want to make a note of it with a contribution from Bruce there around about further education. I was at the launch yesterday of the undergraduate school between New College Lanarkshire and UWS, which was a fantastic bit of innovation. It's the first in Scotland, it's worth noting that, how it's really bringing education for all into Lanarkshire, where there's maybe kind of below average numbers of people going on to gain undergraduate qualifications. So from an education point of view, I think that's worth noting. It was a great bit of work locally. But in terms of through community wealth building, maybe what are some things that we could be doing? And I guess I've just reflected on some things that we've spoke about in this space over the last 12 months or so. We've spoke about spatial planning in town centre master plans, which is all very exciting, very progressive and fantastic for the area. And I'm very conscious of the unfortunate closure of a number of facilities in my neighbourhood. Some were able to have that success of, leading to community ownership, a community asset transfer, but there are a number of facilities closing, so there are now less places for third sector activity to take place. So I don't know whether there would be demand for it, I don't know whether there would be need for it, but I wonder particularly within that town centre planning, whether there would be scope to look at the feasibility of some sort of third sector hub, because there's a number of organisations now who are struggling to identify where activities could take place. So it may or may not be something worth us exploring. We had Hub South West in last time, which was a fantastic presentation, hugely impressive, and they were keen to expand their social value. So I guess very, very mindful of increased population in certain areas with a number of builds, and how do we potentially bake into contracts that likely increased demand for third sector services, and how do we join up that support? In terms of our social enterprise strategy, there's some great work going on collaboratively. We do have a lack of black and ethnic minority leaders within social enterprises. We've actually got a lack of social enterprises in more rural areas. We've spoken about community transport already. And there's a kind of clear gap in terms of what products are being bought and sold. So I just wonder whether there's something we could do to stimulate some of that market. I wonder through some of the vacant land, whether there's opportunity to look at some innovation around about community energy. May or may not be opportunities within there. We've already spoken at the Community Wealth Building Charter, so I guess that's an opportunity for meaningful engagement. And I think if we're wanting the third sector to be able to be living wage employers across the board and to adopt fair work practices and policies, then probably that local fair funding charter is a kind of key enabler for that. So anyway, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share the campaign or details of the campaign with you. It is very much about influencing national policy shaper decision makers, and thank colleagues for taking the time to see how we can show a wee bit of leadership in South Lanarkshire. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, for the presentation. Can I ask if there are any questions or points that anyone wishes to make? Could I encourage you to indicate now? And could I come to John Ross?
Yes, thanks very much, John. thanks, Stephen, for his presentation. I think it's an excellent way to go about things. It's been needed for some time, and I was only too happy to be able to second Kirsten's motion at full council tomorrow. And as I say, hopefully we'll get the approbation of the council to that motion. Can I just ask Stephen? Obviously, this is started off as a local campaign, and I'm just wondering if he's managed to take it any further, and if we're getting other local authorities happy to beat the drum as well. If you can maybe give me a wee update on that side of it.
Shouldn't have pressed my button off there. That's back on. Thank you. No, thank you, Councillor Ross. Thanks, Chair. Yes. So I guess without boring you, the Essential Sector campaign was maybe launched about a year, 18 months ago, and that was by SCVO, and it was really about championing the sector. And I guess off the back of that, the kind of call to action was whether it's in your own geographical patch or whether it's in your own thematic interest, infrastructure organisations across the third sector, could you do some sort of follow-up? So what I would probably put to you is that Keep the Beat Alive is the first example nationally of this taking place. And then it has, of course, as you say, stimulated a lot of conversation because there's colleagues in other areas who really like what we've going on. It resonates with them, the asks. So I won't name the 5 areas at the moment, but there's five other areas who have now entered a stage of co-producing something now. Now whether it falls under the Keep the Beat Alive banner, or whether it then becomes something personal to their own local area. Either way, I don't think it really matters, you know. It's about championing. And I guess what we're also doing is holding an event at the end of the month to look at our 3 big asks and how they then move to action. And we're looking to try and co-produce some of those actions, in particular with MSP colleagues cross-party, because we've got an event in Holyrood on the 15th of January 2025. And really the task now is to build momentum over the second half of the calendar year in 2024 and use that as our kind of benchmark to see how much progress we've actually been able to make. So in summary, there's five areas of Scotland that now that's kind of stimulated a piece of activity, and I'll keep you updated.
Thank you. I suppose I just want to maybe bring this back to the to really what the Commission's all about, and really what we do and what we seek to do boils down to trying to create an environment in which we have a plurality of ownership models, because we think that's how you lock wealth into place in your communities across sectors. And that's the alternative to an economy that's dominated by wealth extracting capital and footloose capital. And our role really as policymakers or as community wealth builders is to create that ecosystem in which that plurality of models can flourish. So we need national government to do the bits that national government can, and that's about investment, it's about funding, it's about the patterns of investment and the incentives that sit around that. But for us, the focus has to be whatever's happening at a national level, what can we practically do to help build those alternatives? So we've had some very useful and sort of thought-provoking examples there in that presentation. And not just in this space, but in the space of, I know, the council, different organisations, community planning partnership, will continue to do that. And then I anticipate that tomorrow the motion that was referenced earlier will receive cross-party, if not unanimous, support, and look forward to that tomorrow. I don't have anything to add, but are there any other questions or from anyone? I'm not seeing any. So if that being the case, can I thank... Oh, sorry, I've got just come in there. I have Elspeth.
Hi, thanks very much. It was just a point, Stephen. I know I've heard you speak about this campaign in the past and really impressed by it, and keen that we are able to support it. I was on a session just a few weeks back. It was a national session about community catalysts, and it was just when you were talking about social enterprises. This was specifically about the contribution of social enterprises and community organisations to health and social care, and particularly micro enterprises. So offering kind of health and social care models. And I just wondered whether you were aware of that work, because it was really interesting, and I think it would be good to consider, in that health and social care space, just whether we're maximising the potential of the sector, and is there more that we can do to meet some of the gaps and the needs that we have, but also looking at how we build that community capacity. So happy to link with you offline. There's a YouTube webinar of the session that I can share with you if none of your team were involved in it.
Thanks, Elspeth. Yeah, I was at one of the events earlier in the year where they kind of looked at the Common Health Catalysts kind of achievements to date. I wasn't at that particular session, so I'll pick up with you offline to see what learning we can bring back to the area, and I'm sure there is plenty that we could do. So thanks for flagging that, and thanks again, Chair, for your remarks around about the polarity. Appreciate that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands, so can we thank Stephen for his report and move now to item 7, which Tom Little is just going to talk us through the forward programme and future meetings. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It is just your regular list of papers we expect to come to future meetings of the Commission. We always take the chance to reach out and ask people to offer up any ideas of any other areas we should be going into, and perhaps even offer up some reports of their own. And I'm pleased to say that the September Commission already has quite a healthy looking agenda, and it includes a couple of reports from colleagues from the NHS. So thanks for that. You'll also get in September some significant bits of work, including the annual report and the action plan review that Neil referred to earlier on.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? I don't see any questions. So if I come then to item 8, which is urgent business, or no items of urgent business, so could I bring the meeting to a close and thank everyone for your attendance today. Thank you.